What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be making a tier list of all the items in Chapter 5 Season 2 and where I would rank them and why. As always, if you guys do find this video helpful, informative, interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more, comment down below where you would rank these items or if there's anything that you like massively disagree with on my list. And the way I'm going to be doing this is the gameplay in the background is just going to be random gameplay, and then when I rank an item, I'll have like the tier list thing kind of pop up. That way there's just something to look at in the background and it's not just, the blank screen the whole time of the tier list. And then at the end, I'll have it on screen for a longer period of time. We're going to start off with the auto shotgun. This probably would have been S tier coming into the season, but I think now I'd put it at like B or C tier. I'm going to throw it in B for right now, but I really don't think the auto shotgun is that great anymore. And really the only time I would be using it is like off spawn. This list is mainly going to be from the perspective of zero build. I haven't even played builds this season because I've been very busy. So I think the auto shotgun is a low B, maybe C tier now. It's okay, but it's not really something I would go out of my way to use. And pretty much any rarity difference at this point, I'm taking the gatekeeper. It could be like a gold auto shotgun or a green gatekeeper, and I'm probably taking that green gatekeeper anyways. Which brings us to the next weapon, the gatekeeper shotgun. I'm going to have this at S tier. I think it's one of the more overpowered shotguns we've had in Fortnite. Honestly, it surprises me that people aren't complaining about it that much because the damage on it is really high and the fire rate on it is also very good. The only kind of like downside to it is it has a weird reticle which can lead to some inconsistent damage, and its magazine size, but 3 rounds is enough to get a kill, and if you're able to get drum mag on it 5, I think it is a very good amount. It's interesting the way I see people talk about this weapon, because if you guys were around from the start in Fortnite, the tac shotgun was like the original spammy high fire rate shotgun, and that had a 1.5 fire rate. The gatekeeper has a 1.7. So this shoots faster than the original spammy shotgun. But people kind of don't think of it as an auto shotgun sometimes, which is a bit interesting. The next weapon is going to be the hammer pump. I think I'm going to put this in C tier, maybe D tier. I really don't like this weapon for zero build. I never really have, and that's kind of one of the really bad things about Chapter 5, I think, is just that the shotgun meta has never been good. The way I look at the game is that the pump shotgun should always be the best shotgun in the loot bowl, or whatever, the pump is going to be for that season, because it has the downside of having a lower fire rate, needing to like combo or swap to another weapon. And then the auto shotguns, I think, should always just be worse, but they're kind of like saving grace is that they're easier to use. For Chapter 5, we've had the easier, more forgiving shotguns be the better ones, especially for zero build, but even last FNCS, like there's a lot of people using the auto shotgun, and that's like top tier builds competitive. So I would like to see something happen in future seasons with the shotguns in Chapter 5. I liked Chapter 4 a lot, and part of that was just because the shotgun meta was good for most of it. We had the Thunder shotgun in Season 1, which was great, and then the Havoc pump came later down the line, and it was also very good. The next weapon is going to be the Harbinger SMG. I'm going to put this at B tier. This is probably the weapon I have the least experience with in this loot pool. I just never really end up using it, and if I was going to use an SMG, I'd use the burst, but I don't think the Harbinger SMG is bad at all. I like it a lot more than the Hyper SMG last season, so I'm going to put it at B. If you have it in A, it wouldn't surprise me. I think it's a good weapon. It's just not really something I end up using much. The next weapon is going to be the Huntress DMR. I'm going to put this in A tier. I think it's very good, and with the buffs to it recently, it feels basically hit scan, so it's very easy to use. And the damage on it is very solid. So I think the Huntress DMR is very good, very easy to use. If you're someone who has struggled with the nerfs to the Reaper sniper rifle, I think the Huntress DMR is like a very, very good weapon, and it's underrated. And this is coming from someone who never really liked the DMRs in the past in Fortnite. In Chapter 3 and 4, I thought the DMRs we had were always just not that great. But with how the game plays out this season, I think the Huntress DMR is definitely something worth carrying if you don't yet have a Reaper sniper rifle. The next weapon is going to be the Nemesis AR. I'm going to put this at B tier, borderline A tier though. I think it's a fine gun. It's very generic as far as an AR goes for me. Like I don't have a strong dislike for it. I don't have a strong like appreciation for it. Without a sight, it's a lot more viable than the Warforged without a sight, I think. And the damage on it is solid. The fire rate isn't the best, The main thing I don't like about this weapon is just that the bullet travel time feels like way worse to me than the Warforged AR, but that could just be my like lack of using it often, you know? But I don't, again, I don't think the Nemesis is bad by any means. It's just like, I'm not excited to use this weapon. The next one is going to be the Ranger pistol, and this is kind of the same story as the Nemesis AR. I think it's incredibly good. Don't really have anything bad to say about it, but it doesn't go like above and beyond for me. So I would have it at like high B tier, borderline A tier. It's just a fine gun. Am I excited to use it? No. Am I like sad if I get this off spawn? Not at all. Like it's very solid. The next weapon is going to be the Reaper sniper rifle, and despite being nerfed almost every other week, it seems like it's still an S tier weapon. The new bullet drop is makes it a bit more difficult to use, but I still think it's like very viable, very usable, and if you put in the time to get used to the new bullet drop, I think you'll be doing just fine with this weapon. Again, especially in mid-range, which is already what made the Reaper sniper rifle so good. The fact that like you could put the attachments on it, make it very snappy, and make it dominate in mid-range versus ARs that like while they're good, the bullet travel time makes them a little bit more inconvenient to use at like medium-ish long range. You could still just peek out from behind cover a fraction of a second, throw out an insta kill with the Reaper sniper, and like the fact that it's still so good, I feel like the game still kind of like is warped around it. So I would still have it as an S tier item. Zeus Lightning, I'm going to put it D tier. This currently isn't in the game, actually. The God items were vaulted until May 3rd, but I'm still just going to be putting it on this list. I never really thought the Zeus Lightning was that good. I never had a hard time playing against it. It's definitely an annoying, cheesy item where like kind of anybody can kill anybody with it because of the timing. But I don't think it's very good. You might have it in C tier. I'm just going to put it in D tier because I don't think it's good. The next is going to be the Thunderburst SMG, and this is another item I'm going to have in S tier. I think this is one of the best SMGs ever in Fortnite. It's incredibly good, and it still has that kind of, I don't know if it's a bug or a mechanic, where if you put laser sight on this weapon, it has no spread at all. So you can just hip fire people across the map. Makes it work great when like shockwaving on people or using gatekeeper dashes. You can just be very mobile and very accurate with this weapon if you have good hip fire tracking. It also combos well with the hammer pump or the gatekeeper shotgun, because one of the main weaknesses of the gatekeeper shotgun is just the fact that it only has 3 rounds in the mag by default, or 5 with drum. If you run the burst SMG, it's really not the end of the world. If you have to if you do run out of shotgun shots, it's very good. And also it buys cover. And if you're going to be carrying a sniper anyways, it's really, you're not giving that much up by using an SMG over an AR. The main reason I don't just run this all the time is because playing on controller, the aim assist doesn't feel as good at long range using this weapon, but also the bullet velocity doesn't feel as good to me as the Warforged AR. So when I'm fighting somebody that's like shockwaving away from me, or in a car driving away, or using the new Airbender Mythic, I feel like I have a much greater chance of eliminating them with the Warforged AR than I do the Thunderburst SMG, and those are kind of the main situations where I end up using my AR or SMG in recent seasons. If it's like kind of a structured fight, I'm probably using the sniper or the shotgun, or like sniping and then pushing them with the shotgun, you know? If I'm using my AR or my SMG, it's probably because somebody's running from me, and I like the Warforged more for those situations, and that's going to bring us to the Warforged AR, and I'm also going to put that at S tier. Again, like I said, the Thunderburst SMG, I think, is one of the best SMGs we've ever had in Fortnite. I think the Warforged AR is one of the best ARs we've ever had. If you don't like the projectile weapons, I feel like the Warforged AR's bullet velocity feels a lot better to me than the Nemesis or the Striker ARs did last season. It just feels more like I don't have to lead as much, like my bullets are going where I'm aiming more often than not. It does have a decent amount of recoil for some people, but I don't really have a problem controlling it. And it also has like good damage and a solid fire rate. So as far as ARs go for medium range, I love the Warforged AR, and I kind of talked about with the Burst SMG how the main times I'm using it are when people are running from me. If somebody's shockwaving away or driving away in a car or using the Airbender Mythic, I feel like I have very decent chance to just beam them out of that with the Warforged AR. Or when the wings were in the game, same thing. Which brings us to the wings. I'm going to put them in D tier. Some people would maybe have them higher. I guess we'll put it in C. They're okay, but they're very punishable. And even if people use the dashes to evade shots, they can still end up taking a decent amount of damage and translate that fight into something that just makes it harder for them to play. When it comes to mobility items, what I value most is typically how usable is this in a fight, rather than just is this good for getting around the map. Especially with the sniper meta we've had for a lot of Chapter 5, I use cars a lot anyways. So the wings being better for traveling around the map isn't a big deal to me, because they're just so much worse in a fight. If you body someone with snipe and want to push them, the wings are not going to be that great for that. If a fight isn't in a way that you want to reposition, I don't think the wings are that great for that. They are good for like getting up mountains, or if you have an end game in like a really weird spot where like, you know, sometimes you have a game end on the side of a mountain and there's just like nothing you can do. They're good for that, but it's not really something I would ever go out of my way to use. Shield Bubble Juniors, I'm going to put it B tier, I think. They're okay. They're not bad. They're not great. You can kind of force people to bubble fight you in some situations, which can be good. You can put them on cards, which are good. This is another item that, like I said before, it's good. I don't feel overwhelmingly positive or negative about it, so I'm going to put it at B tier. Some people would maybe say that it should be C tier because it's average, but I feel like it's better than C tier, but it's not great either. The next weapon is going to be the hand cannon. I'm going to put this at A tier, borderline S. I think this is very much like a skill-dependent weapon. If you're very good with it, I think it's an S tier weapon. It's very good, very snappy, very high damage, similar to the Reaper Sniper, where you can just kind of play off of cover and peek for a fraction of a second, throw out a shot that completely changes the tide of that fight. You know, maybe you deagle them and then want to push off that, or maybe you headshot deagle them and they're just dead. Like, the damage on this weapon is very good, and the usability of it is very nice as well. Like, it feels nice to use. The only thing is, like, it's very dependent on your aim. If your aim with it isn't good, it's going to be a D tier item. If your aim with it is great, it's going to be an S tier item. I feel like it's one of the more like skilled weapons in the loot pool for sure. And I don't use it very much. I don't find it very much. They buffed the spawn rate of this thing like 2 or 3 times, I think, at this point, and I still don't find it very often. So I think the deagle is a very skilled weapon, or the hand cannon is a very skilled weapon, and how you perform with it is going to determine your ranking, I think. Like, if you're good with it, it's S. If you're not good, it's D. Like, there's a wide gap there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The next weapon is going to be the Hades chain. This is the opposite of the deagle. I was saying the hand cannon is a very skilled weapon. I think the Hades chain is a very unskilled weapon. I'm going to put it at C tier, borderline D tier. But I know a lot of people have complained about the Hades chain, and that's what I mean by it being a no-skill weapon. Like, anybody can pick this up and spam their attack button and then maybe get some kills off of it, you know? And so for some people, that would be S tier, but I just don't think it's very good. I haven't had a hard time dealing with it, and I don't know anybody who has. Like, I see comments from people saying they have a hard time dealing with it, but I mean, as far as, like, good players that I know, I don't really see a lot of people having a problem with it. I feel like it's kind of just like a cheese gimmick item. If someone, like, hides in a corner and maybe catches you off guard with it and just kind of, like, knocks you into that, like, loop where you're constantly getting hit by it, then it can be good. But I just don't think it's very practical in the sense, like, running this versus good players. I don't know if I explained that well or didn't make sense, but I feel like this is something that kind of can dominate lower to, like, medium skilled lobbies, but, like, playing against decent players, I don't think the Hades chain is really that viable at all. And I'm not really sure why that is. I've had a lot of people, like, ask me to make videos, like, stop losing to the Hades chain, but I genuinely just don't know how, because I've never struggled with it. I think the biggest thing is just not jumping on people with no initial tags if you're not confident in your shotgun aim. Like, it's typically not good to just get on people and get a close range fight with no early damage, but especially not so if you're not good with your shotgun aim. If you have very good aim, then you can kind of make bad plays sometimes and get away with it, but if your aim is below average, then jumping on somebody with no tags and then finding out they have a Hades chain will be not great. And then there also is, like, a very obvious audio cue, I feel like, when people take it out or when they're using it. And I feel like when I hear that, I often, like, avoid it. I think the only time I would really have a problem with the Hades chain would be, like I said, if I went into a building and someone was just hiding in there and I wasn't paying attention, then sure. The next item is going to be the drum gun. I don't know where to place this. Maybe B, maybe C. It's, again, a solid weapon that I don't feel strongly about one way or the other. I don't feel overwhelmingly positive about it. I don't feel overwhelmingly negative about it. But when I've used it, I've had some decent results. Like, when it first came out and I was, like, getting gameplay for a video about it, I didn't mind using it at all. Like, it was solid. But I don't want to use this over the Warforged AR or the Thunderburst SMG, or maybe even the Ranger pistol, honestly. So I'll put it B tier, I think, but it's an okay weapon. Firebending Mythic, I'm going to put this at D tier. Kind of everything I just talked about with the Hades chain, I just think the Firebending Mythic is even worse than the Hades chain. Air Mythic, I'm going to put A tier, I guess. It's like BA for me. I think it's definitely the more usable one of the Airbender Mythics. It's a fine item. I don't end up using it very frequently, though, because I use cars a lot. Um, and I also like beaming people out of it. Like, I don't have the hardest time shooting people who are using it. Some players do, and I feel like this will be another instance of like it depends on the skill level of your lobbies. In very low skill lobbies, people might not be able to just hit you at all when you're using this, and so it'd be pretty OP. But I think if you just try to like, if you're losing a fight and then try to use this to reposition or run versus a decent player, I don't think the airbending mythic can work well for that. It can be good in ranked endgames though. From what I've seen in zero build ranked endgames, when there's just too much going on, you know, the airbender mythic players can kind of like slip through because no one's able to focus on them for too long because they'll just get third partied. So I think it's definitely a tier item. If you have it S, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just don't agree either. The earthbender mythic, I will have at S tier though. I think this is very good for zero build. Creates permanent cover. Well, not permanent. I mean that in the sense that like the item is unlimited because it goes on cooldown. Your cover you create with it can be broken or despawned if you place too many. But the fact that you have a cover item on cooldown is very good, especially combined with the fact that it does massive structure damage itself. So you can use this not only to create cover for yourself, but just deny any cover to the enemies. And I feel like that heavily tips the odds of fights in your favor. I don't know if it's something I would want to use that much for solo public matches, but for team game modes, having somebody carry this can be huge, especially if you're not able to get enough snipers or you're not able to, or maybe you just have somebody in your team that isn't good at sniping. You could take someone who's a 1 out of 10 player in this game, and they can be helpful to the team with the Earthbender Mythic. Very helpful. So for that, I'm going to have it at S tier. Waterbending Mythic, I think also is a borderline S or A tier item. I'm going to put it in S. I think it's very good, and it can definitely replace an AR for a lot of people. I made an entire video about this, but in short, I'm not as good at aiming with like the third-person weapons as I am with like a AR with a sight on it. And so for that reason, I would rather have the Warforged AR, but the potential this weapon has, especially if your third-person aim is good, I think is very, very high. It's a very good weapon. Shockwaves, we're going to have it S tier. If you've watched my videos at all that surprised you, like zero, I think shockwaves are very good mobility. You can use it to push people, run away, reposition in a fight. Just it gives you so many options and so many ways that you can play a fight. You can like shockwave through structures to get to people. You can shockwave people out from behind cover, out of bushes. I think shockwaves are incredibly good, and they've been relevant in zero build, I think, every season aside from chapter 4, season 1 and 2. So learning how to use shockwaves and getting good at shockwaves, I think, is very relevant if you're a zero build player. Porta bunkers is going to be another S tier item. It depends on how you want to look at it. I think it's very good. It's not really something I would want to carry for pubs, but in ranked, it's essential. Or it, again, like I talked about with the Earthbender Mythic, if you're someone who doesn't want to carry a sniper or can't find a sniper, then carrying porta bunkers, you could just throw this down, and like it's not that they're not good in pubs, it's just that they're not usually required for pubs like how they are in ranked. But if you have somebody that uses this on your team, you can just tip the odds of fights in your favor because people aren't that used to dealing with it, I don't think. So just throwing down a porta bunker, your team has better cover, they might have like better angles, does make fights a lot easier for your team, especially in endgame. And then the final item we're going to talk about is going to be shield breaker EMPs. This is S tier, A tier, depending on how you want to look at it. It's hard to rank items in Fortnite sometimes because not only is it like the effectiveness of the item that matters, but it's like how often do I want to carry it, or do I want to carry it at all? And so most of the time the answer is no. I would run shotgun, AR, sniper, heals, and shockwaves. But if you don't like sniping, that frees up a slot. And that's kind of how I've talked about like the Earthbender Mythic, the porta bunkers, and now shieldbreaker EMPs. If you're not going to snipe anyways, then having this can be good, and it's a very powerful item that doesn't take much skill to use and can catch a lot of people off guard because it's not the most often used thing. With Flowberry Fizz or Flowberries, if you're carrying that as your heal, it makes it a bit easier to just like get that zero gravity jump and then throw EMPs at people, or you know, Flowberry Shockwave EMP. Like the fact that you can get more airtime makes it easier for you just to rain down these grenades that do like 80 shield damage. I think it's a lot of shield damage it does. Can flush people out from behind cover, out of buildings, out of bushes, and also can hard counter cars, because if you EMP someone's car, it disables the car, and then also it will do damage to the player if they're within the radius of it when you hit their car. If you barely hit their car and you're not near the driver's seat, then you might not hit them, but if you hit the driver's side head on, or like close enough to the players inside, you will get damage on them through the car, get shield damage on them through the car, which not only is great for you, it just makes that fight very difficult for that player. They're in a car, they're driving, now their car is no longer usable, and they're just taking a lot of shield damage for free. It's rough. So I'm going to have shield breaker, EMPs, and S tier, even though it's not something that I want to use often. And I feel like it's a rough item to rely on because it's hard to just get enough of them to make it usable often. When in chapter 4, there's an augment called high voltage, which made it to where anytime you eliminated somebody, you got EMPs for that elimination. And that made it to where you could just run this playstyle constantly and not have to think about it. But without that augment in the game, it's like tough to rely on them because it's not like you're going to replenish them off most kills. You can make the same argument with shockwaves, but I feel like a lot of people carry them, so you're more often able to get them. And you may or may not have to use them in a lot of fights. So that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, informative, interesting. As always, if you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, comment down below, what you disagree with. I'm sure a lot of people will, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.